Three, two, one. Trent, welcome to the December 26th podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
I am really excited to have this conversation. We met kind of randomly, even though I feel like it's never a random meeting that
Truly.
happens. And I've been really looking forward to talking to you and getting more into your story. And I'm inspired by what you've been able to do. So we know you have a heart out, so let's make it happen.
All right, let's do it. Let's dive in. I'm excited.
All right. Who is Trent Griffin-Braaf?
Mm, that's a lot. That's a packed question. So Trent Griffin-Broff is a son, a brother. Have two brothers. He's a father, four kids. He's a husband of 12 years. He's a business owner. I own multiple businesses in transportation, from passenger transportation to logistics. He's a leader within the community, leader within my organizations, leader within my family. Um, you know, he he's someone who's come from adversity, and been able to what we coined is from felon to Forbes. And so Trent Griffin Broff has seems like he lived multiple lives in his 37 years thus far, and probably going to live a couple more lives as the future progress. But as of right now, Trent Griffin Broff is someone who cares about his community. He tries to give back through his experience, through my experience. I'm talking in third person now, and someone who is trying to help others realize that transportation and poverty go hand in hand, and we have the opportunity to change that. It's a systematic issue, and if it was something that it wanted to be addressed, it would be. But since it hasn't, why don't we just take that into our own hands and we change that, how that looks? And so I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit more, but that's a little bit of who Trent Griffin Broff is.
Now, you spoke a little bit about living these multiple lives. Take me back to young Trent. Who were you at that time?
Mm. Young Trent was a class clown, someone who always was looking to have fun. Young Trent was someone who was definitely about his money, and always wanted to make money. A hustler forever. Like, I remember selling lollipops in school, almost getting suspended. I remember, saving lunch money for weeks to months at a time to buy Tommy Hilfiger clothes. Like, so, always just try to figure out a way to make some cash. But in my youth, I love basketball. I'm originally from the Bronx, and my father passed away when I was 9. I moved upstate New York to Albany. I think a lot of what I would do at that time was just play ball. That was my escape. That was my safe space. That's kind of how I dealt with it. And the passion for basketball was everything. So in high school, I played basketball. That's all I do other than chasing girls. And then after high school, which I barely passed because again, I'm a class clown. I'm getting pushed through because I'm good in basketball. Um, I graduate, but it wasn't good. I ended up going to a junior college. I failed out the first semester because I got the same mentality. And then after that, I just come home and I just start running the streets. It's like I'm an adult, so I got to figure out I got to make money. And so I jump into the game and I start hustling. Hustling, selling narcotics. And I ended up doing that for maybe 2 years. I end up getting caught. I end up getting sentenced to a 4 to 12 year prison sentence at the age of 19. After serving about 3.5 years in prison, I was released. But during my incarceration, I think that's where a lot of the growth started to happen. And being in that youth stage still, I used my time in prison. I took college courses. I used my time in prison to, just start to focus on my physical health, my mental health. Unbeknownst to me, that's like really when I started to read books, because you're just trying to pass time. A lot of chess, and that's kind of was my introduction also to into starting to meditate, taking time to meditate. And so, you know, that was the youth in me. After I get released from prison, I'm 23 years old at the time. I have to start completely fresh. I have to really humble myself. I know a lot of people say they was like selling drugs and stuff and whatnot. I know a lot of people were, but I was really like doing it. And, like we were really doing it. And especially at a young age, me and my team, we were called MH, most hated. Um, we were just about that life and we were really doing it at a higher level, especially for teenagers. And so to come back home and the majority of my peers are they still living that life. They didn't get caught, so they still running the bag up. And now I had to make some tough decisions because obviously the opportunity was there. I was one of the leaders of the team, so it was kind of laid out for me. You come home, we got you. And honestly, I did jump into it for a moment. The youth in me. I ended up actually almost catching another case. I did catch another case actually. I got pulled over coming back from the city, me and one of my buddies, co-defendant, and basically they found a brick in the car. Um, at the Wade hearing, so I get locked up. I'm on parole, and so I can't do anything because now they put a parole hold on me, so I can't bail out or anything. So I'm just fighting it from inside. I had a pretty good lawyer, and he was just like, "Look, this thing seems like a illegal search and seizure from what I gathered." And so we take it to the Wade hearing. That was like a little bit before going to trial because I wasn't copping out, and they had to suppress the evidence. And so me and my co-defendant, we're done. That's done and over with. And that was my eye opener because I missed the birth of my first daughter during that time. And I just knew those 6 months fighting it in the county was tougher than the 3.5 years that I did in prison because when I was in prison, I didn't have any kids. Like it was just me. At that point, I had someone out there. And so by the graces of God, we end up that gets suppressed. And I said I made a commitment to myself that I would never allow myself to go back to jail, especially for no drugs or anything like that. I said there's too much money out here. I just have to figure out the way. And so that's really when I humbled myself. And I was like, look, I gotta work. I need to get a job. So I started working for temp agencies. It was hard to find a job. I ended up staying at a temp agency for over a year's time, and I literally separated myself from everyone. I put myself in a bubble. It was me, my wife, well, my girlfriend at the time, and my daughter. And I just was working. She was working. We just figured we wanted to better ourselves. I started to throw parties just to, have some additional income. Most of the people from around my way had no idea I was even working. Like in their eyes, I probably looked like I was still doing the same stuff because I'm throwing parties night at the nightclubs, but by day I'm working and I'm sweeping floors, I'm cleaning toilets, and I'm reading books on how to be a good manager. I'm taking time for training and for opportunities that weren't available yet, but I was aligning myself for when the opportunity came. And my big break came in the form as a front desk job at a Marriott. I was a houseman cleaning the toilets, training with Rebecca. I never forget. She gave me the drop first, like Trent, I'm moving to Florida, but I think you'd be great with the customers, and so let me train you a little bit. And so she used to train me on how to check people in, answer the phones, and then so when she put her notice in, she told him like, "Hey, I've been working with Trent. I think he would be great in the role." They gave me the shot, and that was literally all I needed because once I got that opportunity, within 6 months I was the front desk manager. Within a year and a half, I was the operations manager, and within probably 2 years from there, I was the general manager. And so,
So that's a lot, right, to unpack, right? Just in that, those are multiple chapters of a life story. And I want to take it back because when I think about Albany and a lot of us who did not grow up, in upstate New York, all we know is
mhm,
government. Like I don't
right,
I don't think about Albany in the sense that they are the same sort of issues that are happening in a more urban location like the Bronx, right? But we all know there are issues
right,
everywhere.
right,
But thinking like going all the way back to you being born and raised in the Bronx, losing your father. Let's take it there first. How did you end up in Albany? Like, who made the decision? Was it your mom? How did you end up leaving the Bronx for upstate New York, which is like seems like worlds apart?
Nah, definitely. Yeah, that was just all my mom. She was originally from Albany, so that's where she was born and raised at. And so after my father passed, she needed her support system. She knew it takes a village, and so she wanted to be closer to home, and so she came back home to be with family, and so that's how we ended up in upstate New York.
So like we are around the same age bracket. I got a few years on you, but I remember, right? That was the Tommy era. That was the Nautica era. That was like you had to be fly. We were rocking like the M Gears and the Timberlands of Jersey, and people would do whatever it took. But thinking about you as an athlete, right? All this potential, all this talent, and you mentioned that teachers are pushing you through the process getting kicked out of junior college. What was your mindset at that point, having been an athlete and thinking about all the promise and opportunity that could come from that to further your education and your career? What was your mindset at that time, even outside of the I need to get money? Just my athletic dreams are over at this point.
Hmm. No, that was it. I mean, I'm only 5'8", so I identified quickly I wasn't going to the league. I didn't have no D1 people knocking on the doors, so I kind of, it was a passion, and I continued to play, but it was it wasn't gonna it wasn't gonna pay the bills. So it was nothing more than playtime for me. But I will say, through basketball, I learned, looking back at it today, I've learned that the the hard work I put in, all of those years shooting hoops in grandma's backyard when no one was there, playing in the rain, like all of that stuff, that is what led up to and helped me even graduate high school. And it was very competitive. We're upstate New York, but there was some ballers. Like it was serious. Like it was real serious, real competitive. A lot of people went on to play professionally, and but for me, I wasn't even supposed to be on that team because I was raised a Jehovah Witness. So like I couldn't go to practices. Like my mom, we had to go 3 times a week, which is like the church. And so I couldn't even play on the teams because I couldn't commit to it. So once I got old enough to say, I'm not going to the hall anymore and I want to play basketball, I was able to then be part of the teams. But by then they kind of already had built up, who they liked, who they've been playing with for years. And so I had to crack that code. And so I had to be really, really good and outwork people to even get those opportunities. So when I look back at it now, those are some of the seeds I learned from playing basketball. Was you put the hard work in, and you might not see it right away, but in time it grows, and you plant those seeds, and eventually there's a harvest season. And and basketball also helped me through prison, because in jail, that was a place where I could go and escape everything, because when I'm on the court, all I'm thinking about is ball. I'm not even in prison when I'm on the court. We just playing ball. And so that was like an escape through prison, and also it helps you network like anywhere else. If you play ball, you wanted a baller. So in prison, then I became a baller. And so that kind of helped me get through my bid like problem free, so I could just focus on being the better version of me.
So this being raised Jehovah's Witness is an interesting fact. Now, knowing what I know about being raised in that environment, when you decide that you're done with it, a lot of times your family, you're just fellowship. Like your family's like, well, we can't communicate with you. So thinking about the fact that you walked away from the hall and then also the life that you chose to lead, what was the dynamic like with your mother?
So that's true. The thing about that though is, if you're baptized, then you're like you said, then you're disfellowship. So you're kind of no longer a part of the fellowship until you earn that back. Being I was never baptized, I never took the plunge. That was never a thing, because it was like I was never officially on the other side of things, I guess. So naturally though, being that my family were all still going to the church, and they still do to this day, that they had their feelings, but it was never a disfellowship thing for me. Like my family was always still able to talk to me. They always still were there for me. Naturally, they didn't support my incarceration, but they did support me, and so they would come visit me and make sure I was still good. So that didn't really put a strain on our relationship at all. But if I would have got baptized at a young age, that would have put a strain on the relationship.
Got it. So you do this 3.5 year bid, come home, facing new charges, are able to circumvent that, get into the hospitality industry. Now, we all know hospitality at that, entry level does not pay a lot at all. Now, having been somebody who was literally getting to the money and probably had friends still in that life, I know you mentioned you just tried to insulate yourself, but what kind of psychological effect did that have on you, particularly as a man with a young family at this point?
I think it made my psyche stronger. Because I I didn't care what other people think. I had to kind of shun what other people thought, what they cared about, how they looked at me, how they looked at us. And I knew I was on a mission. So it was like, as I've gotten older and I've learned who I am, I've learned that I'm very much mission driven. And so when I have something in front of me that I want to accomplish, I'm just gonna work at it and work at it. I'm never gonna accept no. I'm gonna keep going until it's accomplished. I didn't really notice that when I was young or know that about me, but during this period is when I started to really understand that. And so for me, it was a strength because I was able to turn what might be perceived as a weakness, kind of getting away from my social skills and things of that nature, social groups. But it allowed me to focus on who Trent is. And I think that was a big part of my development. And I think it's something I always tell people: you got to take time to know you. Like, you can't help anyone, you can't do anything until you know who you are. And so during that time period, that's all I focused on, or was on Trent and learning who Trent was and what Trent liked and what Trent was good at and what I wasn't good at. And then I would work on those things so I could get good at. And so it was a real good period for me, a lot of growth. And then naturally with the relationship, during that time, sometimes you could grow in opposite directions. And some of that, we experienced a little of that. I think I was growing a little bit, maybe not too fast, but maybe in a different direction at the time. And but it all came full circle. And it also, in me doing it, I found that even my partner, she started to then really focus on herself and growing. So again, going back to being a leader, I was leading by example, unbeknownst to me at the time.
So you get into the hotel industry. How you started from a temp perspective, right? From a temp agency, but you get into the hotel industry and you climb the ladder there. When you talk to folks who have done time, hard time in prison, the first thing they generally say is like, I got a record. Like, nobody's gonna hire me. So how did you overcome that? Now we have the ban the box and all that, but we're talking about a different time and space. So how did you overcome that?
So through trial and error, and also at first I was being denied jobs. That's why I was working at a temp agency. And but I realized I have a hyphenated name, something that I hated growing up. I have a hyphenated name, and no one could pronounce the last part of it. And but I learned during that time was if I use one of the two last names, sometimes the felony doesn't show. And so that was actually ended up being my safe haven. Was I started to apply with just one of the names, and it worked.
Listen, that is smart. I've heard of married women with two names using one or the other for different purposes, but smart move for sure. So you get into the hotel business, you're climbing the ladder there all the way up to general manager.
Yep,
Right now,
that's
at
correct.
that point, you're in a senior role. Money's looking way better, I presume. Most
Mhm.
people would take that and be like, I'm good. I've got my family, I've got my career now. The past and those bad choices are behind me. I'm going to ride this out. But
Mhm.
you have created a complete entrepreneurial empire since then. So how do you go from general manager of a hotel to business owner?
Man. So that transition came organically. That was the first time once I was the general man, I knew I could motivate a team. I knew I had qualities to really help develop and grow a team. But once I became the GM and I was actually able to see the financials, and I'm looking at the year over year. And so I'm going back to see what was done previous to me. And then I realized after my first year, we've hit milestones that the hotel had never hit in terms of sales. And so I'm like, hold on, if I'm helping make another family millions of dollars a year, I literally went to prison chasing behind some money. So I said, I got skill sets that if I figure out a way to apply to myself, I think I could be super successful. And so then it started to just became I was going to work with a different lens on. I started to go to work looking for opportunities. And being that I was in the hotel industry, I was looking for opportunities within the industry that I could start something that, I could then potentially do. And that all came to light. There was a casino being built in my hometown of Schenectady. I sat on the hospitality board at that point, and so we all talked about how terrible the taxis were. And so it all started just with a conversation. I was like, hey, you guys all know me in the group. I'm thinking about potentially opening a shuttle service, and I want to gear it strictly to our hotels because we know the taxis are terrible. And I got 6 hotels to say, yeah, we'll use your service. So as soon as I got that, now I just went to work on building the business. And so kind of put the in that instance, I put the horse in front of the cart, and I did it the right way because I lined up this before I even started business. Unbeknownst to me at the time, that's great business practice. And I think that's been part of the reason, Tech Valley Shuttle is what I ended up creating. Tech Valley Hospitality Shuttle is what it's really called. And the whole premise was to be the hotel-based transportation supplier. I already knew kind of what tickled the hotel world's fancy in terms of they want heads in beds. I understood that some hotels have a shuttle service that won't even go outside of a 3-mile range of their property. I understood that they're probably losing $40,000 to $60,000 a year on that vehicle, and offering that service because there's really no return on that. And so I said, hey, I've started to pitch to the hotels. Well, with my service, we could go further than the 3-mile radius. It'll save your company, 20, 30, 40,000 a year. And why wouldn't you want to do this? And so we went from 6 hotels to working with over 50 hotels throughout the capital region in less than a 2-year period.
So that is unheard of for a lot of
Mhm,
people. We know coming out of, particularly as Black folks who have a hard time raising capital, whether it be from
mhm,
banks or private investors, we can't, most of the time, we can't do a family and friends round where we say, we have this idea, can you put money in? So there's
mhm,
a survival aspect in those first couple of years that can be impossible for a lot of people. Forget growing, just surviving. So let's talk about the startup costs with something like this, right? This
mhm,
is the kind of business where you need obviously the vehicles, the insurance. It's not a one-man band to make this work
mhm,
if you're talking about you're
mhm,
serving multiple hotels from the start. So, did you have the money? Like, how did you get this off the
mhm.
ground? Particularly because you have what, 6 hotels who are like, "We're in
6 hotels,
immediately."
yeah,
How
to
did you make
start.
that happen?
So I was fortunate enough that I had some family members, 2 of my aunts, who were in position and willing to help. So I was able to raise some capital from them. Plus I cashed out my 401k. So I said I'm gonna bet on myself. Plus, I was still working at the hotel, so I had a guaranteed check coming in, and so I was able to, the blessing being at that point, we were married, me and my wife. We had a plan. She trusted me. She trusted my vision. We understood through our budget and understanding finances that we could live off of just her income. It'd be tight, but we could do it. And we also had lived experience from, going through the stages of humbling ourselves to, we knew we could live off damn near off the land, if need be. And so, that's kind of how we did it. I invested in myself. I was able to raise, and it wasn't a lot of money. I think I was able to raise maybe 15, 20,000. But that was good enough to help me put the deposit on the vehicle, to have some money to be able to pay out payroll, start to, brand us, start doing some marketing stuff. So it was definitely a nice jump start. And then I lucked up, like, again, I, I lucked up again because I went to the bank, and literally the company couldn't have been more than 6 months old. And I was able to secure a line of credit, a small line of credit, as well as a business credit card. And they messed up. I was supposed to open up a personal line of credit, but they gave me two of them by accident. So, I didn't close it. I said, "Oh, we got even more capital." And so, I basically ran the checkup on all that stuff. So throughout to keep the operation going. But I lucked up, and I honestly, to this day, I look back at it. I don't even know how I was able to get that funding, because it was through KeyBank, a known bank. And like, they're not known to easily come off the money like that. And so I think it might have been just, me still having a job at the time. My credit was good. And I leveraged literally everything I had to get it off the ground.
So you have these 6 hotels in rotation. You've got some financing. You've now gotten employees. What were some, and things seem to be like just rolling for you pretty seamlessly,
Hmm.
but what were some of the
Hmm.
pitfalls in those early days?
You know what? A lot of pitfalls. We weren't DOT qualified. I had a Sprinter. I didn't know that I over 8 passengers. It has to be DOT qualified. So I'm running this. I'm riding dirty, dirty. Like, and so, so that was one thing. DOT pull us over, roadside inspection, RSI. Naturally, we fail it. But they also understood, and they were actually really understanding. And they pulled the vehicle off the road. They didn't find me, but they gave me this is what you need to do. And so naturally, I went right to work and made sure we were all in compliance in that space. And that was probably one of the biggest hiccups throughout the course of things. Also, just the learning pains. I've learned a lot over the years in terms of being more strategic. I'm someone who's like, even my team, they call me the shooter, because they say just point me in the direction and I'm gonna go. And but I'm trying to change that, because I'm learning now. Yeah, it's good to be a shooter and go, but it's also even better to be strategic and play more chess and be moves ahead of everyone else. And so that's more of the stuff I focus on now, as well as I would say early on. You're in the rat race, so you're wearing every single hat within the company. And at times, and especially for a lot of small businesses, that's when we lose ourselves, because you might have came to business for one thing, but now you're an accountant, now you're a marketer, now you're in sales. Maybe that's not what your passion was, and sometimes you get caught up in all of that and you lose sight of what you originally came into this for. And so I really, throughout the process, always stay grounded on wanting to continually work for the company work on the company instead of working for the company. It wasn't always that easy. But I was able to line up 4 team members pretty right away. So that way I still had the driving portion covered, because I was still working. So I knew I couldn't get caught up in driving because I'm still running a hotel. But that was a blessing for me, because that allowed me to continually focus on working for the company. And then I will also say another big thing was just the self growth and continually understand that I don't really know nothing about business. There's people that go to Harvard Business School for business, or whose families have been in business for years. I didn't have any of that. And so I understood that I needed to put myself around individuals who could provide me with that sort of knowledge, or I needed to invest in myself so that way I started to acquire business knowledge. And so I would say probably I started in 2016, but by 2018, I was already, taking courses to support my growth, as well as indulging in transportation. I wanted to be a master of my craft. The industry started to change because Uber and Lyft came, the rideshare came to the capital region. That changed everything. The phone was ringing nonstop, and then the phone just stopped ringing altogether. And so that was a big time for us too. Back to your question, because that was the first time we actually pivoted. And even though we had all of these hotels that we were working with, now that people aren't calling us because everyone's using Uber and Lyft. We would literally be sitting at a hotel and someone has their phone out waiting for cars to come, and we're like, "Hey, you need a ride? Like, you need a ride? Like, like, you need a ride?" And they're like, "No, it's coming, it's coming." And so, we had to reinvent ourselves. And so, knowing that I started to sit on transportation committees, And I started to really look at the numbers where I lived, and that was when I realized that transportation and poverty go hand in hand. And that's when I started to kind of take a looking at is talking about this. No one, yeah, we have public transportation in the form of a bus, but how much can buses really do for people? Like they're limited to the routes that they're on, so people are still struggling. And so that's when Tech Valley Hospitality Shuttle. I changed the DBA, went and got a DBA to just Tech Valley Shuttle, so that way we weren't boxing ourselves in just to the hotel industry. And that's when we really just started to say, yo, we need to focus on building our own people up. And so, through my lived experiences, through members of my team, we started to share stories, and the stories were all around transportation and how it was a barrier in different parts of our lives. And then we started to identify services that we could do that would support someone who might be going through the same thing. And so that's how we came up with our free community prison shuttle that we do monthly. That's to help reduce recidivism, because we found that with every prison visit someone receives, the rate of return is reduced by over 12%. And so we're like, look, if we could get someone 4 or 5 visits within a year of them coming home, the odds of them returning is reduced by nearly half, and just from visits. And so we also realize that most people who are incarcerated are oftentimes sent well over 100 miles from the place where the crime happened. So it makes it very hard for individuals. And if we're talking New York State, we have to keep in mind New York City house millions of people, and a lot of these individuals don't have a car because it doesn't feel like a need to have a car in New York City. So now you send someone 100 miles whose family doesn't have a car, how are they going to get to you? And so we really just started to focus on stuff like that. And then COVID came. And previous to COVID, we were like hitting on all cylinders. Everything was rolling. The hotels were rolling. We were helping schools. We were doing community stuff. And then COVID hit, and it was just like, boom, we lost 98% of the business overnight. It was devastating. And me and my COO, Christopher, at the time, we were deemed, what was it? Whatever, where you could just stay essential. We were deemed essential being transportation. And so we stayed open, but we had no business. And so what we started to do is we just started calling nonprofit organizations and different organizations in our region and just asking, hey, how can we help? I have these sprinter vans, I have a school bus, whatever it may be. And we know people are struggling right now, maybe to get to doctors or to get food or whatever that looks like. How can we be of help to you guys? And that's literally how we reinvented ourselves throughout the pandemic. We were totally the first ones in line to help out in any way. We started doing food deliveries. We started doing medicine deliveries. All of these things, and we're doing it all complimentary. Like, hey, it is what it is. But the beauty of that is that those all started relationships, and then naturally those relationships evolved into now a lot of those same services we're continuing to do, but now we're funded, through our community partners.
So, thinking about the number of times you had to pivot and the changes you've gone through, and changes with really immediate financial consequences, right? When Uber and
Mhm.
Lyft came on, people were like, the regular consumer was like, this is amazing. I don't have to talk to anybody. I can just click a button and there's a car here. Gig workers, best thing that ever happened to them. But for people in this industry who had built whole businesses on what was really an insular market that was not open to everyone, very real impact. Then, of course, none of us had anticipated what COVID was going to be, and how it would alter our lives and our businesses and our jobs for so long. But what kept you in this industry, being met with these challenges that really can just knock you flat on your back?
Man, listen, there was days I was like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to open Tech Valley up again. Like just being real. The conversations I had with my wife, like it might be over. What kept us going though is I I'm a lucky guy. I'm not gonna lie, or my higher power loves me. But in March, everything shuts down. My birthday's March 16th. It was actually on March 15th or 14th, everything started to close down. March 16th came on a Monday, and that's when we officially got the word from everything that everything was shut down. So on my birthday, essentially. Um, by April 1st or 2nd, I received an email from Amazon saying, "Hey, are you interested in applying to be a delivery service partner with Amazon?" And so I had previously received this email probably in 2018, 2019, when things were really clicking on all cylinders. And at the time, I was a little arrogant. I was feeling myself. And so like the question, I was right. I was absurd. Like I remember literally writing at one point, like Google us. Like, why I'm telling Amazon to Google Tech Valley Shuttle. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And
Not
so
telling Amazon to Google you. Anyway, go ahead.
right. And so but I'm at home, nobody's outside for real. I have nothing but time, so I diligently went through that application. I gave it my best shot, and and by July I was forming my logistics company, and I had an official contract to be a partner with Amazon. And so now we're still in the lab at Tech Valley during this time, and I have Chris, and you know like I said, it's probably July. So we're still doing some community stuff, but some of those conversations I've turned into contracts where now we're having services going. And I told Chris, I came up with a strategic plan. Like, look, bro, I'm going live with Amazon in August. I'm leaving Tech Valley Shuttle like essentially for 6 months. I said I need to go build a foundation for my logistics company, identify some key players, individuals I could put in some leadership roles. And you got my word that if you're able to hold down the fort for the rest of this year, he wasn't my COO at the time, but I told him, that's where the opportunity was going to land because I knew he could run the operations. And so that's what we did, man. And I ended up jumping over to GB. I built the foundation. I was on a hiring spree, built my team up. I identified key people, and I just started to put them in roles. I started to take a step back, and then by the what that was 2020. By 2021, I was back in the office at Tech Valley Shuttle and focused on growing that up too. And so and so now today, we come out of all of that, and Tech Valley last year had the best year we ever had financially. We're looking for new space. We're bringing on new people to the team. So we're growing. Um, GB Logistics, my logistics company, we went from 12 vehicles to 24 or 23 vehicles in less than a year's time. At our peak season, we tend to have nearly 90 or so associates on the team. Tech Valley to the 20. So, in our peak seasons, we have over 100 and something people on the two teams. We have, 40 something vehicles in the fleet. And, all of this started in 2016.
So I want to talk about being an Amazon partner because over the course of the pandemic, there have been some articles out about the dark side of being an Amazon delivery partner, in that the quotas you're expected to meet, the schedules that you're expected to meet are basically inhumane. And so there have been founders of logistic companies like yours basically saying, like, it's impossible to meet the expectation that they have, and we're being penalized, we can't keep drivers and all of that. How have you been able to overcome what some people make sound like just an impossible situation to be in?
Um, I mean, to be honest, every organization is its own organization. And so Amazon is like a franchise, just like a McDonald's or a Burger King. So they're gonna give you like the fries and the burgers and tell you how to do the recipe, but they can't come in and run the show for you. And so, I don't know what each person's experience is. All I could tell you is my experience. And my experience, is, you know, we've been literally just last month, we were ranked number two out of the whole network for what we do. So we're hitting our quotas. We're doing what we got to do. I don't know, I really don't know. And and I will say this: Amazon gives you the freedom to really run it how you run it. So, if you sink or you swim, that also is gonna a big part of that is how you run your organization. And so I would kind of leave it there because I really don't know how each person runs theirs. But I know we've been super successful in what we do. We've been able to grow, I think, more than they even foresaw. And And in terms of how we treat our team, like I'm somebody, I offer my team extreme benefits. Like, I have a partnership with a local college. My team is able to get free college courses. It's an entrepreneurial college. So, a lot of individuals want to do their own thing. And so, we're able to help individuals take free classes in the college. We help individuals get their free commercial driver's license, even though that's not even a requirement, with the expectation of them going on to do bigger and better things. And so I think for what we do, um, I think my teams understand I care so much about them that when they're with me, they're rock stars, and and then they go on to bigger and better things. And I just feel blessed to be able to provide an opportunity to help individuals get CDLs, to help individuals go back to college, especially when we're able to help ex-offenders like myself.
So that's a great segue into what I wanted to talk about next, in that you did your time, learned meditation, studied all of those things. But you and I both know that the prison system is not designed to rehabilitate anybody, and it's
Mm-mm,
not designed to deter recidivism. It's just
mm-mm,
not, right. And it's an industry at this point, and it's there. It's profitable for some prison systems to have heads in beds, if we can borrow the hotel mantra there. So looking at your story, it doesn't surprise me that you were able to pivot in your life and your career and build this whole enterprise, but that's not always the case for brothers coming home. So, being someone who wants to hire ex-offenders, have you run into a situation where you want to give somebody an opportunity, but there are challenges to overcome because they had been institutionalized and have had a different experience than you?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So that's twofold. So we run into problems, so it's still, so like, if a lot of times, people want to come and experience the delivery aspect of things and get in the logistics, but we still also have to put everyone through the same background, and it has to be in agreement also with Amazon's views. And so there's times where individuals might not be able to pass that particular screening, but the flexibility I have is I still have another transportation company. And so if I'm really vested in this person, I can still provide you with an opportunity just on the other side. And I say the other side because when I'm talking to one side, then I say I'm on the other side. So I'm just used to saying the other side. But so I'm able that, so that's been, a awesome thing, because if I can't give you an opportunity here, I still could give you one here. But then in terms of etiquettes and just hiring individuals who some people on my team have never worked a job before. They were hustlers, and then they just been in and out of jail, and that's all they did their whole life. So I have individuals on our team where we're really the first job they ever had. And so we're really showing them the ropes in terms of what good work etiquette looks like. And something as simple as just being on time and wearing a uniform, which would seem, for someone who's been working, would seem like no big deal, like almost expected. For other individuals, like it's like the furthest thing from anything. Like they don't get the concept. And so, but we're really on growth and showing people why. Also, teamwork is one of the values on both sides, both businesses. And so a part of teamwork, one thing I'm always able to help individuals understand is, just like any sporting team, the team wears a jersey, and that jersey, you play for the front of the jersey, but you also play for the back of the jersey. And so it's no different with this organization. Like, you come to work and we're all one team. We're Tech Valley Shuttle, or we're GB Logistics, and that's our team. And we want our team to thrive. And as a team, it takes everyone on the team doing what they're supposed to do for the whole thing to work. And so we're really able to kind of go back to my basketball experience and utilize a sporting concept to really help individuals buy in and understand the importance of stuff, as well as to then understand what a team looks like, and how we're going to win or we're going to lose as a team. And I think we're so much talking about team all of the time, and training every Fridays. We at Tech Valley Shuttle, every single Friday are training days where everyone on the team is undergoing some sort of trainings, from the COO all the way down to a driver, like, and everything in between. Everyone has trainings that they have to do. At GB Logistics, we actually just brought in literally this week just hired, brought on a trainer. And and Mark, I just said we were number 2 in the nation in our network, yet the goal is to be number 1 consistently. And so in doing so, it's reinvesting to bring in individuals who could be trainers and just focus solely on that. And so I understand the investment in especially dealing with, what I call sometimes special populations, people who would be overlooked at in other industries or other organizations. And we're able to really tap into that and show, nah, this is best practice. And I have a example. We had a young lady who had a commercial driver's license. She was working for another transportation supplier, but they wouldn't let her drive. And so they had her cleaning cars. And so, we came over. She was a little rough around the edges, I must admit, but I come from that world, so it was easy for me to understand, but it was also easy for me to communicate with her on why you can't be like this here. Like you have to be professional. And so today, last she actually was the she was our she won an award. We just had a holiday party in January for both parties, but I think she was the driver of the year. So she went on to be someone who was overlooked, wouldn't even be given the opportunity to drive for a company, to being our driver of the year. And so it just takes a little bit of love and showing someone that you actually care about them, you want to see them win, and you're going to put them in position to win as long as they're bought in also. And so it's definitely been a great experience. It's something that I think in another life, as we talked about before, I'm sure I'm aware a lot of being another life. I think that's going to be an area I'm going to focus on when I'm done in the logistical space and in the transportation. I think I'm going to really focus on, setting my intentions on training and helping other ex-offenders to really understand how to be a good person at work. And we know 9 times out of 10 they're not dealing with someone that looks like yourself or myself. And so there are already stereotypes and they're already feeling some sort of ways around individuals. And so I want to be able to really show and coach them up on, just work etiquette and also, how you can take it extremely far if you come in and you're the best version of you every single day. And so I think that's something that I plan on pursuing in the future, because everyone talks workforce development, everyone wants to hire and wants inclusion and diversity, but nobody really wants to give the chance to some individuals. And so I want to be able to really come and train and show individuals how they could really wow everyone. And oftentimes all I was ever looking for was an opportunity. And I know that's all most people are looking for, is an opportunity.
And, for people like you who've been able to build this great life and build this great business and really distance themselves from past wrongs, we've all met this person where you have a conversation with them, they're doing great in their life. If they didn't say anything, you would not know that they had done time or whatever. And then you might have this conversation, they tell you off the record, oh, I did a bid 20 years ago or what have you. And for you, it's something that you speak about openly. It's not something that you try to shove into a closed chapter, never to be spoken of again. And what drives you to be so open about it, particularly because you are politicking on committees and in communities where it may not be well received per se to talk about that. So what keeps you going to be really open and explicit about your backstory?
It's funny, that came from, so when I first started the company, again, I've just been blessed, and I had the opportunity to do a story on the local news channel, Spectrum News. And I told him that I wanted to just be transparent and tell and share my story. And so I shared my story, and it airs, and I'm excited. And then I go to one of the hotel partners, and I'm talking to the general manager, and he's like, "You should have never did that." And I was like, so I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, man, he was like, so many people out here, they're going to judge you for, sharing that story. They're not going to want to do business with you, blah, blah, blah. And so I go back home that night, and I'm in bed, and I'm like, I'm messed up. Like, I should have never did that. And so me and my wife, we talking, and she was like, well, babe, honestly, would you want to do business with somebody who, don't want to do business with you because of a mistake you did in the past? And I let that really sit overnight and just flustered in my mind. And I woke up and I was like, nah, I wouldn't. And so anybody who doesn't want to do business with me, great. Like we already drew our land, we already put our line in the sand. So we're good in that instance. And I said, moving forward, from this day on, I'm gonna double down on my story because if I could share my story and help somebody else, impact somebody else, so be it. And so that's what I did. I just unapologetically would share my story to anybody who would listen. And then through my successes, I believe that some of those same people who at one time probably wouldn't have rocked with me, now it's almost like they're forced to rock with me because everyone else is rocking with us. And when you get Forbes and Bloomberg, you have these national publications that are highlighting you. You don't want to be on the outside of that, in the local neighborhood, not cheering this person on. So, through that, I think I've been able to win people people over. And now what I tell people all of the time is now that I have people's attention and now people can see me and get past the fact that I was once someone who was incarcerated. Now it's my goal to continue to push the narrative because there's thousands of people who look like us who are right behind me in the same story that all they need is that opportunity that we talked about. And so maybe through my story that might start to change the lens of how some individuals will view these people and give the next person a shot. And so at this point, yeah, it's unapologetic. Like I want everyone to share my story. I want individuals to know that you can make a mistake and it's not going to be easy. Like I never went on anything and said it was easy. I've given blood, sweat, and tears. I risked it all. There's times where I didn't know how we were going to keep the lights on like we shared. But at the end of the day, we continued on. We never stopped. And, and now it's just like, hey, since the eyes and ears are on us, now let's just tell them all, yeah, we've been felon, we've been to jail, and guess what? We still do good business, and guess what? I could have a big chain or like any of that. Don't you can't just make any preconceived judgments on anybody until you really get to know them and know what their character and know what they're really capable of, instead of just judging a book by its cover. And so that's kind of why I just unapologetically share my story.
So you touched on a little bit your relationship with your wife and the evolution process that you both have been through, but we both know that relationships that involve one party having done time often do not survive. Or if they
Mm,
survive, the toxicity and dysfunction that comes from the psychological effects of
mm.
someone having been in the prison system is can be rampant in a relationship or a marriage. So how have you been able to build this healthy family unit? Can you get a little bit more into the growth process there?
Um, Man, if I had it figured out, I'd probably be rich for being able to write a book about this or something. But I would just say honestly, for us, it's been all about communication, trust, and not trust in just the relationship. You're not cheating stuff. Trust. I'm talking more so trust of leadership and trust of also of each other. My wife is amazing. She has sets that allow me to be good at what I do, and I think vice versa. And so we're kind of like a glove. Like we're just a good fit for each other. Like anything, we have our ups and downs, our challenges. But I've learned through communication. I feel like you could get through anything with good communication, as well as like as I talked about growth. And so, we're both always constantly looking to grow at this point in our lives. And so, um, I'm happy when I hear my wife reading books or, listening to podcasts around things that she wants to explore, and I encourage it. And then also I'm an open book with her. Like a lot of relationships or even people in my own circle, I talk to them and I kind of look at their relationships from the advice from what I hear, and it doesn't always seem even. And I try to keep it even. Like, and even in terms of I understand where I'm at, I've received a lot of notoriety. There's times we can't go places without people, oh, there goes Trent, or hey Trent. But I always try to include my wife. I always want her to be a part of. I bring her to, I want her to be in the banking meetings, just like I want my kids to be at the closing of properties and houses. Like I want us all to see this. I want them to understand that all things are possible. If something were to happen to me tomorrow, knock on wood, I want them to know that I didn't do anything special. They could continue on and they could take it even way further. And so um it's really just about, in my opinion, big part is just the communication, also sacrifice. I've learned early on, happy wife, happy life. So I sacrifice a lot. There's a lot of things that I would love to do, but I just don't do because I know either a how it might affect my wife or how it might affect my kids. And so I'm very empathetic in that regard. And for me, I the way I see things, like, I don't think prison jaded me. I don't think that experience made me have like some of the psychological effects that it might have had on other individuals. And so, that's a blessing. And so I don't think that follows me. Like you said, oftentimes even my child's godfather, his daughter didn't even know I was incarcerated ever before. When she found out, she was like, Trent, like, are you kidding me? And so, I just don't think a lot of people, if you don't know that about me, you wouldn't know it. And so I don't think any of that really follows me. And so, but again, I think it really comes down to the communication, the growth, the love. We want to be here. We want to support each other. We want to see how far we could take it. We've been together since, we were 16-year-olds, like literally in high school. So, we've seen it. We both come from the mud. We both come from projects and, not having light. So we've experienced all of that. And so, we want to see how far we could take it in the opposite direction of all of that, and how far we could take it for our kids. And so, I think for us is bigger than either one of us. But I think we're just a glove, a good fit. And, she wants to grow, I'll grow. She trusts me and she lets me lead, and I trust her and I let her lead when she needs to lead. So it's just a good balance, I think. And I think a lot of times people, especially a lot of fellas, a lot of times don't want to be open about finances. Sometimes they, like, I remember, like I said earlier in the interview, there was times where I knew we were living off my wife's paycheck. Like, that was literally how we were going to survive. And I was okay with that. She was okay with that. It was never, I have to be the breadwinner or none of that. Like, you the breadwinner, great. As long as we got bread, we're fine. Like, and so we'll figure it out. And so, I think it's just definitely just teamwork, having a vision, open communication, knowing where we want to go, game planning together, being a part of, making sure that everyone feels included, and sacrifice. We both got to make a lot of sacrifices to make this work.
That's great. And shifting gears before we let you get out of here, describe a time when you had to be extraordinary on an ordinary day.
Mm. Man, every day, but I would say extraordinary on an ordinary day. So, all right, example, I try to, for me, it's important to be even killed. Never too high about anything, but never beating yourself or get too low about everything. And this is something that, is very recent. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll just give you an idea. And so we were in talks with a really big organization of potentially doing something together. I thought everything was going great. I get a call a couple days ago from someone who was kind of involved, but kind of wasn't fully involved. And they're kind of giving me some information like, Trent, who the people you think that are supporting you aren't supporting you in closed doors, da da da. So all I could think about, and this could be just the traumas of being a black man in America, but all I could think about was the only reason they couldn't want to do this is because of the color of my skin. Because everything else, I can't see why they wouldn't want to do it. And so I'm starting to allow myself to get in that space and that thought process. At the same time, it's like making me feel really bad because it's like I can't do nothing about that. Like, I can't do anything about that. All I could do is continue to be me. And but so I one thing I try not to do is bring work home. So, I'm home, the kids coming home. I gotta still be dad who likes to laugh, joke, play, dance with the kids, turn up. And so I'm doing all of that. But inside I'm still feeling like, ugh. But I never allow it to show. I even at some point I had to go upstairs while they were playing, and just before we started to really play, I started just go upstairs and say, talk to my higher power to keep me grounded, keep me, going strong, keep these thoughts out of my head. Maybe these thoughts are not even real thoughts, like maybe I'm thinking too much. So I let it go, boom, 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 get past it. Ironically, the very next day, some of the people I've been in talks with getting this done, we get on the line and we're talking, and it has nothing to do with any of that. It's actually they want me to work with them so bad, and they don't want to make it so they have to create an RFP and allow others to even bid and then make it a bidding process. And see, and so, after the communication and understanding, the next day I feel completely better. We're back on board. We're getting meetings back on the calendar, and we're continuing the conversation. And so, but it was a tough day. And I think a lot of times, and I share that story just to say for all of us, there's good days, there's bad days, but we got to stay even. I'm looking at my clock right now. It's 11:11. We got to like always stay even. And so, and I think that's what life is about. Never allowing ourselves to get too high, no matter what. Celebrate your victories, but at the same time, never beat yourself up when things don't go exactly how we want. Um, and so I think that's something that everyone can gain from, because we all have good days, we all have bad days. I think though, as long as we treat the good days the same way we treat a bad day, and the bad day the same way we treat a good day, things always tend to work out. And even in this interview, I said a couple of times, I don't know, I'm lucky, but I really don't think I'm lucky. I think the universe blesses me because of the energy I put out and the way I try to carry myself. And so I think I received those blessings. And I think those blessings are there for all of us to receive. It's just a matter of us putting the right stuff out, conducting ourselves the right way, never getting too high, never getting too low, never allowing our heads to get big, just staying even tilt just the whole time. And I think the blessings continue to come.
You basically
That's an
snatched the
example.
words right out of my mouth about this whole. That's really where I was going to end. Like, you are not lucky. It's you are in a posture to receive, and the blessings are finding you as a result of what you're putting out into the world, and also just sowing good seeds into blessing other people's lives to follow a similar path as you have, who may have the same backstory or a similar backstory. And I believe when you put that kind of good out into the world, good is going to find you in return. It doesn't mean that you're not without challenge, as we've talked about in your story. And I think sometimes what happens is we have something that looks like it's going to blow up our whole spot, and we just say, you know what, maybe this was not the right decision. Why is this happening to me? I bet everything on this, and now look, it's an Uber. Now look, it's a
Hmm.
pandemic. But knowing that those challenges are just a part of the story and the journey, don't even know why, but they come. But when you remain in that posture, the solutions and the creative ways to solve problems will appear, and new opportunities will present themselves. And in your story and your career and professional journey as well, that is ministry. And there's a way to bless other people and encourage other people by telling the whole story. And that there's a lot of hard work, but the special sauce really is in believing that good things are going to find you no matter what. And so I appreciate you sharing your story with us today. If people want to learn more about the work that you do, where can they find you online?
But definitely. You could find me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Trent Griffin-Braaf. On online on Instagram, it's at Tech Valley Shuttle. Same on Twitter. Same on Facebook. Tech Valley Shuttle. Google. Like I told Amazon, you could Google us, or or check us out on LinkedIn. Check me out. And I'm hosting a web series, a 4-part web series throughout this year. It's dedicated just to women-owned, minority-owned business leaders, to really give them best practices. My whole premise was to hopefully be able to, someone tune in, they would have literally everything they need to start, grow, scale, and run a successful business. And being sponsored by a local bank, I have a lot of local resources that are being a part of this. But if anyone is interested, that's on Eventbrite. And I think that's called 60 minutes, 60 minutes with Trent Griffin-Braaf. And so yeah, so you can check me out on those things, and otherwise you check us out. We've been in Forbes, Bloomberg. There's an array of articles about the company, about me. I try to be very transparent, and try to just give people the jewels so that they can do the same things.
And let me just say this, end on a light note. Trent Griffin Broff is a great executive name. You just sound like an executive with the hyphenated last name. I know you might have hated it at one time or another, but listen, it works.
Now it works, and I appreciate that. It does it. So even that though, now we're very tactical school with how we name our children. And so like some of our daughters, we gave them names like Taylor. So it's kind of non-binary. You can't really identify a race. Because I've realized through my life how important names are and how that, plays a part. And so looking back at it now, I absolutely love my name, and thank you for
It's great.
that.
So listen, I'm gonna let you take the CEO executive hat off because it's time to get back on daddy duty. I know
So
that.
true.
So we appreciate you. To our listeners, you know the drill. We know we have people who listen to this show who come from all manner of backgrounds. If you are interested in what Trent is doing, you want to follow up with him, please find him online, sign up for his webinar. I already know the nuggets that are going to be in there based on what we discussed in this interview. If you've enjoyed what we talked about here, or you think it could encourage somebody else, share it with them, like, comment, subscribe to the show. And as always, remember to be extraordinary on an ordinary day. Take care.